right, all set up. I'm so excited. So, for all of you that join us live or all of you that join us on the replay, I am, I don't even have words to describe my excitement to be able to have Anna here today because if you don't know Anna, typically the roles are reversed and Anna's interviewing me,
True.
right? And so we've been able to work together in various capacities, and every time it's so powerful. It's different every time, but it's still so powerful. And so I know that Anna's going to bring such a powerful and inspirational story here that's going to be real and raw. I was just telling Anna before we hopped on, like, we're not here to be fluffy. Yes, we're here to inspire. Yes, we're here to uplift and encourage. And yes, we want everyone to know that's going through a hard time. The hard times are a part of life, not to minimize it at all in that experience, but for you to know that it doesn't have to define you or dictate who you become. In fact, you can blossom and grow out of that in a way that's going to be unique to you. And so, Anna, before we dive into the challenge that you're going to share with us today in your life, which I know is very intimate for you and very personal for you, I want to first start out just, if you don't mind sharing with us who you are and where you're at right now in your life, kind of what you do, what you love, like what you're passionate about, and a little bit about you and your family life.
I love that. Thanks, Toni. And it is a blessing to be here with you and giving me this opportunity to share my story. Thank you so much because it's only the rare opportunity. Like you said, I'm usually allowing other people to shine, whether it's working with you, interviewing you, or allowing, our members to share how it is that they support well-being and self-care with the world. So thank you. So my name is Anna Pereira. I'm the founder of the Wellness Universe. What I'm passionate about is really helping people to live their best life, and through those who are responsible to the service they bring to the world and empowering them and giving them the platform, them the network, them the community of peers, and putting all of us together online, offline, in person at different events and different types of ways we have content distributed, blogs, written stuff, and our books, on our retreat. This is how I help shape our inspirational, transformational leaders and healers with the world. So everyone, our chance at awareness, transformation, just living their best life in a space where they can be vulnerable, they can get the help that they seek from the level of which they need it, because obviously some people, they can't enter college at fourth year level. You have to go from year one. But then some people have taken year one, year two, year three, and they need fourth level coaching, or they need fourth year help, right? So this is the mix of the dynamic and wonderful, amazing, transformational healers that I brought together at the Wellness Universe. And of course, so attracted to you, my dear, my friend Toni, Dr. Toni. I love you. I love how you help so many. And of course, being someone who is authentic and really caring about who it is and where they come from and how they support the world to be a better place. Knowing your story, knowing, that you're a mom, knowing what you've been through and how you've transformed, and that this is really life purpose, life lessons transformed into helping other women. This to me is what makes my heart sing, to be surrounded with you and people like yourself. Who doesn't want to wake up in the morning, you know what I mean, and swim in a pool with all of these wonderful people? So that's who I am. I live between New Jersey and Portugal. I'm in my Portugal house right now. I've been married for 11 years. I have a hard time accepting that I'm a manifester, but I am. I manifested my husband, and I do believe that it's all energy. And I do believe that, you got to keep putting it out there, and you got to keep the hope up and keep the faith and keep at it and keep true to yourself. A couple of my beliefs. I'm also a big advocate for animals. I have adopted almost all my animals. Only my parrot I bought because he's an African gray, so he's a little bit hard to adopt one of those. But I take care of a deer in New New Jersey. I don't really say that much because we're not really supposed to take care of wildlife, but he came to my house injured, so I have to take care of him. And I have people looking in on him now while I'm here. But yeah, it's just been, I have a very blessed life, and I'm not, and I don't say that in a way that it's, you know, where people go around and they sugarcoat or they make things like it's better than what it is. I really truly do have a blessed life, and I truly believe it's because of my beliefs and how I really manage my life, and how I put myself out there to the world, and how I represent my belief system and what it is that I want to do in the world, and stepping up and into it and owning it. That has created me to have a really blessed life. It's not perfect, but it is pretty darn good. But I did have go ahead.
And I was going to say, and passionate, right? And I think that
Very.
that connects to why you're here today, not just in general with your life and all that you've shared, but the passion that you have and the passion that you bring to the work that you do and the connections that you make. I have a hunch, you fill in the gaps, but I have a hunch that in large part comes from the experiences, the challenges, the trials, the tribulations that you yourself have experienced. And I'm curious about if you can share a little bit about that with us today.
Sure. So, going like way back, my parents had come over separately from one of the islands that belong to Portugal called the Azores, if you're not familiar. And so my mom had come over when she was 13. She was the firstborn, and she herself was a bit of an introvert, a bit awkward. And I think that I also inherited a lot of those traits. My dad came over when he was about 19, and they were kind of paired up. So they didn't really have that getting to know each other period, but they got married, they made it happen. They had a long loving relationship until my mom passed away in 2013, and then my father just passed away last year. But and I use the word loving, committed. Let me put the word committed in there, because it wasn't necessarily a role model relationship. As far as, my father came with a lot of traumas, and my mom came with her lack of confidence. And I think that now, looking back as an adult, being exposed to different things and being able to look at them as human beings rather than parents, because I think that as a parent or as a best friend or as a sister, we don't look at those around us and say, oh, this person is this.
Yep.
Instead, she's like, oh, that person's awkward. Not like, oh, they've been diagnosed with Asperger's or something like this, right? Because we don't look at it, because when you're looking at somebody that you've grown up with or that has raised you, you almost don't put a label on them. So you don't realize, the underpinnings of everything else that goes around that impacts you as well. So up, I think because that my father had to come across as someone that was, I want to say machismo, like, he brought home the paycheck, he went to work every day, and that's all he had to do as a man. That was his role. And my mom wasn't really, my mom loved me, but she wasn't a very loving, nurturing mom. And in the culture that they were raised in, there's a lot of, you have to be a certain, I don't mean from like crack situation. I just mean like, you can't be talked about by the neighbors. So you have to be someone, you can't be yourself.
So like the masks and the facade and the worrying about your representation and your reputation and what other people are thinking about you. It sounds like all of you had to fall in line in that way.
Right. Like there was no, like, it was, shame. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you are breaking up off and on.
Okay, sorry about that. It was very much about shame. It was very much about, you can't do this, you can't do that. But then there are certain virtues that were held. Like if you worked hard, that's what created a valuable person. If you had been given a title, oh, well, Anna works at this big company and she has this big title, then she's a so-and-so. But not if I'm on my own as an entrepreneur, working day and night, and people don't understand what I do, and my parents don't get it, and then I don't get the support. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it was like this whole thing as I was growing up, always constantly having to feel like I was on my own. And I felt that very early on that I was on my own. There was also lots of constantly always um, the mindset of lack surrounding everything, and everything you to like work like grueling. You had to be grueling at it. I started working when I was probably around 12 years old.
Mhm.
But also my parents, because they wanted better, and my mom really did try her best to better herself. She got a broker's license, she became a realtor. She really tried to, bring in some really decent for the household. My father was a laborer. He worked at a trucking company and he loaded the trucks. He was a forklift operator out in the docks. And we moved into a nice suburb in New Jersey. And it was above the means that they really had, that they had sustainable, financial means to be able to handle all that. So it was always like I was always the one in the neighborhood to, not have their kids had. So that created a problem for me
Mm.
because I didn't understand as a child growing up. Well, so and so has, and so and so has, like so
Mhm.
and so has a bike. So and so, I'm going to
Mhm.
bring up back a word from when I was a child. So and so has Atari, so and so has cable, so and so has MTV,
Mhm.
and it's like we didn't have those things because they couldn't afford it. And that was like a big thing. So one of these themes that ran through my life was we couldn't afford it.
Mhm.
So those one of those themes that, like you said, these things that they don't have to pin us down. I always said, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to say I can't afford it. There's no way. Like, I'm
Mhm.
going to make sure that I rise above that. There was always that theme that you had to be someone based on this structure, based on what other people, what other people think. And I always said, I'm going to be my own person. I am, don't tell me what to do, a little rebellious. Um, I was always artistically creative. So that was always fostered. That was the only thing that was fostered. Academics were not fostered. So I got A's and B's in school, but I took like the lowest classes and more art classes than everything else. So on the scale, I actually graduated in the middle. Like literally, I was the middle number of my graduating classes. I didn't take as many academic classes. It also wasn't. Um, I wasn't encouraged to go to college. And one of the things that will always stay with me on um, how how much parents who are hurt, they don't realize how much damage they do. No one prepped me for college. No one had any conversation with me around this. So like one day I just woke up and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm 16 years old. What the hell am I going to do? So I was like in my kitchen. I was like 17. I was almost like ready to graduate. I was like, I want to go to college. And literally, I'll never forget this. My father was at the kitchen table in his bad mood, as he usually was. And I'm saying this to my mom, and my dad says to me, he's like, you're not going to college. We can't afford it. Like, that's it. This is your child. And now I see, like, you're so damaged that you didn't want your child to excel over you
Mhm.
because you're so damaged and you have so much trauma. See, my father had fourth grade education. That's how it was in the islands, like back in the day. You went to school till fourth grade. That was it.
Mhm.
And only the rich or had means went on. And so it could have been jealousy. It could have been that he didn't want me to outsmart him. And, I actually kind of lived with that because he obviously at that time never got resolution. And, he's probably in his 30s at that time or 40s. And through growing up, he never got resolution. So I had to still deal with this all along. So even though I've created what I've created here, I still had that as a program running. Like here I have to deal with my father. He doesn't understand what I'm doing. He doesn't
Mhm.
get like me. He'll like if I'm on the even if I'm on the cover of a magazine, he'll be like, oh my gosh, it's so great. But then he'll be like, okay, you can take it home now. Like he wouldn't even give me like credit here
Mhm.
right now as an adult in my 40s.
Mhm.
So I always had that. And it was really, really hard to overcome who you think is supposed to support you the most or love you the most and unconditionally. And and be okay with it. So I had a lot of issues with, wanting to be loved, and relationship issues. I knew that, you know, I always had a lot of boyfriends. And I always went out and did my own thing. I had 3 jobs at one time to make sure like I took care of myself. I moved out at 19 on my own. By the way, I did end up going to community college for a little while. So I did go for a little while, but I ended up moving out on my own, got my own apartment, had my own car, did everything. I handled my life. I handled my life.
But it
I,
sounds
I
like you
am where I
felt
am now.
like, was it like you felt like you had to? Because I know, so one of the big like umbrella experiences for you was this lack of love. Like those were the words, right, that you used in sharing with me, is like, I just felt this overarching lack of love. And it's almost like this lack of love, this foundational overarching lack of love from my childhood and my adolescence made me feel like I had to like work so hard and prove myself. And it's kind of embedded itself over time in how you show up in other areas, like in your work, right? Like in and even sounds like even pieces that might still be coming through now. But what would you say are like the most challenging pieces for that lack of love? Like the what was that experience like for you, or what were the things that stick out for you the most of like, I'm trying so hard. I'm working so hard. I'm right. Like I want to be loved. I want to feel loved. Like this lack of love. What is that piece for you that feels the strongest that you've had to really tend to and pay attention to, or maybe is coming into your awareness even different now than it was before?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that I felt was, well, you're all alone in this, Anna. You
Mm,
better take care of it. You better take care of it. If you want something, you got to do it yourself.
yeah.
And honestly, that was my theme. That was my theme at the same time, coupled with the fact of lack of confidence. Because when I was growing up and when something happened, like let's say in the neighborhood, of course, all the parents would step up for their kid. But the first thing they would say to me is, what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong? Not no one had I felt like no one had my back.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know what made me be so like hard-headed or stubborn, or but i I used that later on to, you got to do it yourself, can't count on anybody else, Anna. You know what I mean? And so it held me back in certain ways, because I really did isolate myself, and I was called bossy and all these other things, because I really felt like I couldn't trust anyone. I couldn't trust anyone on that level. Like there's the grass and the dirt, but then below there's rock. And I can trust everyone to that grass level, but when you hit that rock level, forget it, man. Like that's Anna's territory. Like there's no one penetrating that rock territory. Like that's my responsibility, and I count on you for anything when it comes to that level. It was actually during my corporate position. I was the head of a pet products division, a pet clothing division, a pet products company. It's a $15 million division. I'd gotten that after having a clothing line for a few years, and we had a motivational speaker come in. This literally was a pivoting point in my life. I was in my mid 30s, and he was blind, and he was a motivational speaker. And he said, people ask me, how do you get around? How do you go out, and how do you have the courage to do this? He goes, because I know that there's people to help me. I
Mm.
literally, that landed like a ton of freaking bricks, Toni. And honestly, it took me till I was 30 something years old to just say, there's people around to help me. All I have to do is ask.
Yes. Yes. And
And that
that's that
changed my
life change.
life.
Yes, that's that life change right there, right? It's like I want to be loved. I don't feel like I can be loved, so I'm going to distance myself so I'm not hurt. But then I'm going to look for love in all of these places, but I'm only going to let it go to grass level so I don't get too hurt. But now I'm just getting rejected, or it's not working out and I'm feeling worse. And so when I finally realize and accept I can be supported, and not only that, I'm worthy of support, things can
Yes.
change. And I'm curious if that was, and I know we are on a time frame today, so I think we have 5 minutes left, but I'm curious if that shift was also something that you felt pretty profoundly when it came to like your intimate relationships and like finally letting yourself go deeper, open up more, get more vulnerable in that area too. If that opening up and that openness to support affected you in more than just one level of your life.
For sure. I mean, there was like, I want to say maybe false starts, because you believe that like now that you have this change in perspective, that you start making these different decisions, and that you're like everything's going to be great all of a sudden, and then you start going through these learning curves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like getting your nose broken to set your nose straight, because it was broken already but it healed incorrectly. That's what I felt like I was going through still, before I really realized, you know I am worthy. That was like a whole nother level, because it took me so long. I was in my early 20s before I really understood to build my confidence. And my confidence actually came as like a 2x4 to the forehead. It was through working in a bar and being around people that I really had to get my confidence, but I needed to make the money so I could pay for being on my own, pay and take care of myself. So if I wanted to take care of myself, I had to make money. And just the jobs I was working weren't cutting it, so I had to work at night and I had to work at a bar. Being with all these people and being in that setting built my confidence up. So in those that it was like all learning, and then adapting, and then implementing, but accepting and being worthy. Like there's confidence and then there is worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned these lessons, and it's sad. And I look back and I said, and this is what drives me today. And this is why I have the passion that I have, because I want people to learn these lessons sooner than later, because
Mm-hmm.
I missed out on my entire childhood was running from shame, running from blame, trying not to get in trouble for no reason at all, not being loved, just trying to fit in. It was all of these stories, and all of this is exactly what my life was. Literally what my life was. And I was different. I was different in my neighborhood. It's either you're black, you're white, or you're Italian. Like there was no Portuguese. And I'm sure you could look at me like, oh, you're fitting with Italians. But when you're that, like, you know, classified in the neighborhoods that you grow up in,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't fit in, and they spoke Portuguese in the household. So I was bullied. So it was all of this through all my childhood. And it's almost like I didn't wake up until I was like in my 20s. And then I still had that learning and that building of confidence.
Yep.
And then to realize, you know what, you're worthy.
Yeah. Well, I think, Anna, and we only have like 1 or 2 minutes left, but I think, Anna, that your story is so important to hear and to be shared because, so the past few interviews we've had have been very direct, like very like, it was this big event and that changed my life. It was this big event and that changed my life. And those are so powerful as well. But there's also those individuals that are out there like, oh, but I didn't get in this major accident. I didn't have this one major, what we call big T trauma, but yet I still feel this disconnect, this isolation, this loneliness, this suffering, this whatever, this negativity inside that's unfulfilling. And that's because what you share in your story here is there's this backdrop of micro experiences on and on and on that still affect your life. And you can deny them as long as you want, but as long as you deny them, you can't address them, accept them, and move through, right? And forward from them. And so I think that's the power that you bring by sharing your stories. Like, Anna didn't say like, oh, this one thing happened and then everything changed. She's saying, no, like this is the backdrop of my life. And it was painful and I didn't know what to do with it. And so this is how I reacted. And it took me a series of experiences in life to be learned in order for me to begin to pivot and change. And that is just as powerful and important. That journey is just as powerful and important as the ones that seem like, oh, this big event happened and then this change. They're both okay, and they're both going to happen to various people in various points of their life. And so I'm so deeply appreciative that you're just willing to share that with us. And of course, I know we could go on and on forever because there's so much more, but I want people to hear that your story's okay, your journey's okay. It's not going to look like someone else's, and it's not supposed to. And so kind of to wrap this up and bring this together, Anna, I would love to hear from you. And I ask everyone this: who is it that inspires you? Who is it that you look up to, whether it's someone that is personally connected to you, like you directly know, or maybe it's someone that you don't directly know, like a famous person or something like that, because we're here to inspire one another, to share stories and create that safe space, but also to inspire one another at a deep level. And I'm curious about who inspires you before we wrap up today.
Oh my gosh, Toni, please. I get inspired by everyone. I get inspired by everyone because I feel like life is a rainbow and everybody brings a different color, right? Well, my husband, number one. I do want to share that obviously my latest announcement, one of my idols, which is why I said I'm now accepting them a manifester. One of my idols just wrote the foreword to my book, John. And if you don't know who he is, look him up. He's an extraordinary human being, and he is somebody that inspires me. And I just want to cry just thinking about all he has done for himself and how he helps the world. And oh my gosh, it's mind blowing that he did the foreword to this next book. But yeah, my husband, tons of celebrities, but again, you only know them for their stories that they share, on the outside, and like Oprah, her backstory from other things that she's done, of course, but it's the real people that share their real stories, like you did in our first book. You really went deep and shared, everything that you went through, and being a perfectionist. This is what inspires me. I'm the person, I think I told you this before, I'm that person that rather go to that high school talent show and see the raw, this is what I got, y'all. Like, this is me. I'm putting on any fluff. I'm not putting on any mask. Like, this, I make you smile, or I make you cry with this, or I want to make you feel something with this. And this is all of me. I love that. That's what inspires me. Authenticity, people just shining from their source, from what makes them wake up in the morning. That's what inspires me. Yeah. So thanks for asking.
Yes.
And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Anna. I am sure we will be connecting again on yours or mine or all of the above, right? I'm so blessed to have you. We are so thankful. Anyone that joins us, #replay, #inspire, let Anna know that you love her and you're inspired by her story. So Anna, have a wonderful day. I know you have a jam-packed day today, so we appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us.
Love you, Toni. I love you so much. And thank you. And thank you, everybody who's watching. And you can reach out to me if you have any questions or, any comments. Let me know.
Yeah, drop your info below. Drop your info below at any point so people can connect with you if they want.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye, Anna.